Welcome to Washington Hospital Today, dedicated to informing residents about healthcare topics and issues. Through programs featuring community forums and free health and wellness classes, our goal is to empower community members with the information needed to make informed health decisions. Washington Hospital has been providing healthcare to the residents of the Washington Township Healthcare District for the past 60 years. Today's presenter is registered dietitian Kimberlee Alvari. Kimberlee Alvari is the Director of Food and Clinical Nutrition Services. She is also the Chief of Patient Experience at Washington Hospital.
So tonight we will be talking as food is pharmacy. So really food is pharmacy, and we'll talk about the prescription for colon health tonight, principles really to eat and live by. What we really know is food just acts like medicine. It has chemical structures within your body that interact with your genes and your metabolism. And so it really becomes primary prevention. One of the preventions that Dr. Varapan was talking about in terms of preventing colon cancer. So it may seem like it's easy to know what to do when it comes for that prescription. What do you live and eat by? But with all the information out there about nutrition, the gimmicks, the fads, and all of the information that you're fed every day about nutrition or that you see, it's a little bit confusing. But what we do know for sure is there's been solid epidemiological studies that have been done on patterns of eating that really produce a long and a healthy life. And so what we're going to talk about is the celebration of what those patterns look like and how you prevent chronic disease as well as colon cancer tonight. So it really is prevention. A third of the cancers that we get can be directly related to the things oftentimes that we eat, and that includes colon cancer. So the prescription for healthy eating, this is what we'll be talking about tonight. We're really going to talk about what that pattern is and the studies have been done. The studies that have been done on those eating patterns have been done in areas, parts of Costa Rica, parts of Japan and around the world. They call them blue zones. And those blue zones have this eating pattern that really relies more on the fork and less on the knife. And what I mean by that, it's more of a plant-based diet. So you're using your fork more than you're using your knife on those types of meat products and things. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the microbiome. That is really trending, and it's new information, a lot of research on the microbiome. So we'll talk about what that means, how you affect it and change your health by what you feed that microbiome. We'll talk about, of course, the macronutrients that we're familiar with that we put onto our plate. And the plate uses the 50-25-25 rule when we're putting together that eating pattern. And really we want to really talk about celebrating more tonight. We want to be very inclusive about the variety and the types of foods that you're eating, and it's really not being as restrictive as you might think. We're going to talk about the waistline and weight. Dr. Varapan talked about that, how important it is to have a healthy weight and a waistline. We're going to talk about moving. He talked about those 150 minutes, and those are critical minutes spent every week in terms of your health. Obviously helps with the waistline and your weight. And then we'll have a quick summary of the prescription of this eating pattern that we're talking about. So the background, I just want to talk to you a little bit. I told you that that eating pattern that is shown to be successful over time and is really what we want to focus on, really focuses on a plant-based diet. And what you put at the end of that fork is really powerful in terms of the ability to affect change in your body. So when we talk about the microbiome is bacteria and organisms that are in and on you. Most of them, millions of them, trillions of them actually, are probably within your GI tract. That GI tract is a highway, and it's actually even connected up to your brain. There's a brain microbiome axis. It connects to that major center, control center in your brain. So a lot of things are happening throughout that gut. The food that you fill it will improve your immune function. It will change the way that cells, healthy cells, react. It will change how your blood sugars are balanced, and it will change how you distribute your weight within your body. And stay tuned on this. This microbiome is really something that's gathering a lot of attention right now in terms of, really getting more involved with genetics and what it can do when we talk about feeding that GI tract. So I just want to emphasize that food should taste good. I know when we talk about foods or healthy eating, it might conjure up ideas of, boiled chicken breast and steamed vegetables and things like that. But really, when you're eating a lot of a plant-based diet that includes lots of fruits and vegetables, lots of variety, seasonal, local, different types of seasonings, it really is a celebration of a lot of flavors and a lot of enjoyment, and that's how it should feel like when you're eating. You shouldn't feel like you're living longer because you're suffering with what you're eating, right? That's not the point, right? So we really want to make sure that those fruits and vegetables, those whole grains that are part of that plant-based diet, the nuts, the seeds, the legumes and beans, lentils, those kinds of things are really a powerful part of what you put together. All right, so we'll talk a little bit about the macronutrients. Those are the main components of the diet that end up on the plate. And so I'm going to give you a visual look at what your plate should look at. It makes it really easy to kind of put your plate and your eating together every day. And it really starts with the protein in your diet. We know that protein is the part of the foods that help you build and maintain tissue. It's for muscle repair. It's for your organs. It helps regulate hormones. There's 22 different individual building blocks for protein. 9 of them are essential. That means they need to come from your diet. If you're eating a healthy diet, you should be getting those. And you really need to really get the benefit of protein. You want to distribute it throughout the day. One of the things protein, when it's distributed throughout the day, helps you do too is just give you a little bit of satiety throughout the day so that you don't get too hungry. So we want to look at the fauna protein sources. When I say fauna, I'm talking about animal protein. Not so much the fish, I guess that wouldn't be fauna, but everything else is the chicken, the turkey, the eggs, some of the dairy products, milk and yogurt. We do advise that you eat a couple of servings a week of fish. Most people do not. One of them oily or one of a more fatty fish. That would be salmon, mackerel, herring, tuna, sardines are all some of those types of fish that have the types of fat that are more anti-inflammatory in your body. So you can imagine what that kind of that food medication is doing in your body. So including that, the other fish may be a whitefish, pollock, haddock, cod, some sustainable source of protein in your diet. And when we talk about protein, of course you can eat protein that comes from the fauna sources, but you also can just eat flora. You can just totally have a plant-based diet. It makes it a little easier to meet your nutrient needs, B12, zinc, some of the other nutrients when you have some meat in your diet, but certainly you can have a very healthy diet that's vegetarian or vegan. Just need to pay a little bit more attention to the nutrients that you have to add and make sure in your diet. But these are protein sources that are not from animal sources. So the quinoa, a grain, tofu, tempeh, edamame, kind of like the little beans, soybean, legumes, beans and lentils we talked about, and those nuts and seeds, okay, a cornerstone for a lot of vegetarian diets. So when we're talking about the fauna or the animal protein, I know that Dr. Varapan mentioned this a little bit, but red meat is really, don't want to vilify foods, but red meat is the one you just want to pay a little bit more attention to into your diet if you have it. The American Institute for Cancer really recommends that you avoid processed meats. Those are sausages and bacon. Anything that's cured with nitrates tends to have a carcinogenic effect, and so you want to avoid those processed meats. And then you want to limit red meat, and when I look at this limit, it's 18 ounces a week in cooked fashion, okay, in the total cooked portion. That doesn't seem like it's very limited. Does that seem limited to you, 18 ounces a week? Does it sound like it's limited? Okay. Well, I guess it depends. But the thing with the red meat is that it actually is high in heme iron. They think that it may be the heme iron that's in there that's actually causes damage in the colon. So that's one of the elements. The other element is higher in saturated fats and fat overall. They think it may then require more bile acids, which ends up creating secondary bile acids, which are cancer promoting, tumor promoting in that colon. And just in general, just has a more carcinogenic effect when eaten in high levels in the body in terms of that red meat. And the other thing we know about people that typically eat a lot of red meat is, what are they doing? They don't have a very large flora intake. They don't have a lot of plant-based diet. It's a heavy meat diet. So that combination really creates a problem. So The next macronutrient, or another part that you're going to see on your plate, is your carbohydrates. Now, carbohydrates have been vilified throughout the years. We talked about all different kinds of diets. Usually throughout the years, some type of food component will get vilified. Carbohydrates is one of them. But carbohydrates are a part of a healthy diet. They are the preferred fuel for your brain, your muscles, and your organs. There's two types. There's sugar. There can be natural sugars in fruit, the fructose fruit sugar, the sugar in milk, lactose, or the actual sucrose, which is the white table sugar. And as well as then there's the starch and the complex carbohydrates. So when we talk though about carbohydrates, we really want to say that they're not all created equal. So when we talk about sugar, that's the carbohydrate, those processed foods that you get that have more simple carbohydrates in them, those sugars and sucrose, are the ones that are not the best ones. And we're really talking about what are the best carbohydrates for your diet and what are the rest that you should stay away from. And it's really about quality of those carbohydrates and quantity. So it's going to be carbohydrates that look like this. It's going to be a lot of fruits and vegetables, a lot of different colors. Those have carbohydrates in them. Some of them lower amounts than others, but they're healthy. They're the better ones to be having in your diet, of course. The beans, legumes, and lentils that are pictured here. And of course the whole grains in the bottom. A whole grain is a bread or a grain product that has the endosperm, the germ, and the bran, the entire kernel of that grain still intact. It hasn't been processed. When bread products are made and highly processed and become more and more white and more less complex, they're going to have just really the endosperm, the starchy part, and the part that doesn't have most of the nutrition left in that product. And so that's why that's quality carbohydrate, and that's why that's the best type to kind of really focus on. So those fruits and vegetables, we showed you a lot of colors of those. Those are going to pack a punch. Those are the medicine you want to go after. They are loaded with phytochemicals. They are loaded with vitamins, mineral, and the fiber, which you get from whole grains. But they really pack a punch. And those phytochemicals are really plant chemicals. They're antioxidants that are working in your body to go around and have the bad cells basically commit suicide before they can do damage. Get them out of the body and move those free radicals. Our body is using oxygen, and in that process we create these free radicals that these will be scavengers for. They will improve your immune function. And so you really want to look at these fruits and vegetables as being powerful, powerful medicine on the end of your fork. Okay? And there's power in numbers. It's not just, a few fruits and vegetables. It's really eating a lot of them. What the research has shown in terms of cancer prevention, that when you start to add these together, 1 + 1, one serving of vegetable and another serving of a vegetable, isn't just straight up 2. It's actually very synergistic. And what I mean by that is you start to gain a lot of power in the medicine and prevention that comes from eating lots of fruits and vegetables in your diet. 1 out of 10 people in the United States eat enough fruits and vegetables every day. So we're all challenged in this room to really meet that goal and get our plates set up properly. So fats, there are essential fatty acids. Usually just eating a healthy diet and focusing on adding, just healthy fats here and there to your diet is going to give you those essential fatty acids that help with brain and nerve function, the transport of soluble vitamins and hormone production. There are unsaturated fats, saturated and monounsaturated. There's been a lot of discussion over the years that saturated are the bad ones and the unsaturated are better and the monounsaturated. What I would encourage you to do is start to think of them in terms of promoting those are the best in terms of the advice in total eating the food and not looking at the individual components of those. Some of the early on saturated fat got a real bad rap in terms of heart disease. Doesn't mean that there isn't implications for total fat or those types of fat, but I think we need to kind of look at them in totality and make better choices. Some of the oilier fats like avocado, olive oil, flaxseed, walnuts, those are going to be the healthier fats for you, and unprocessed refined vegetable oils versus some of the more saturated types of fat. You may use, years ago, and I'll clarify this, years ago, margarine was one of the villains in terms of what we thought was right at the time. It turns out that there's a type of different fat that I don't have in here, trans fatty acids. Those are not healthy for you. So we backed away from the recommendation to use only margarine and not use butter. But I would say use butter, which has saturated fat, in very small amounts and flavoring in your food, but not a lot, okay? Because overall anyway, fats are fattening, so you don't want a lot of them in your diet. So this is your plate rule. It's a 9-inch plate. So go home and measure your plate, get out your ruler, and take a measurement of that plate. Most plates in homes are over 9 inches. When you get over 9 inches, just going to a 12-inch plate, you add 500 calories to the plate. So we're talking about proper weight and maintenance. Get your plate down, make sure it's small. 25% of it is going to have your protein source on it, okay, and we talked about healthy proteins to put in that corner. The other corner is going to be your whole grains and your healthier grains, those carbohydrates that we talked about that are better than other ones. And then half the plate, load it up with those fruits and vegetables. Get the synergy of all of those phytochemicals, those antioxidants working in your favor. That makes it real simple every day to put together your plate if you just have a visual look at it. And I also want to include you to eating more and being more inclusive, not being thinking about rules that take away, but add more to the flavor and the palatability. Dr. Varapan mentioned that, hey, we want you to pick a screening test that you want to use and that you could repeat over and over. I want you to eat healthy for your life. I know there's eating patterns that can be very enjoyable for that, and think about being inclusive and having a long, healthy life that's enjoyable, because food tastes good. So real food will taste good, and real food, people ask me, well, help me read a food label. How do I read a food label if I know it's healthy? All of the things, or most of the things I've talked about tonight, do they have a food label? If you pick up a cucumber, is there a label on it? No. Is there a label on, there's not even a label on a piece of chicken. There's no label, nutritional label. So the more you stay away from those label ingredients and the more you get to wholesome food, like I spoke about, that's local and seasonal, the better health and better medicine that you're providing. So inclusive eating also means this. It means that you need to cook more. People who eat out, and research says that people who eat out more have more sodium in their diet, more fat in their diet, more sugar in their diet, more processed foods in their diet. Now, I know we're all not chefs, we're not on the Food Network. I also know that time is really valuable to people. A lot of people don't want to spend a lot of time in the kitchen. You can also cook in advance, right? Cook one day and eat for several days, or freeze something. So we'll make cooks out of you. And you don't have to spend a lot of complicated recipes. Like I said, you don't have to spend a lot of time in the kitchen to make things. Typically when people drink like a vegetable or do juicing, it doesn't really fill them up. It works better for kind of like a snack or a light meal in terms of getting some fruits and vegetables. And maybe once a day you do some juicing if you want to get some extra fruits and vegetables in your diet. But it typically doesn't work as a meal replacement when it's just a juice product, because people do not get satiated from that. So you're going to include a lot of herbs and spices. This is just a list that have some potential in terms of being anti-inflammatory, maybe having some health benefits for your life. And a lot of the countries that we talked about that have this eating pattern, these are a lot of the spices that they use on their foods that are associated with those long lives and healthy diets. So there's some inclusive decisions to make. We talked about just including everything, but I know there's things that we have to consider as well. It really is to say that I know a lot of people, and when there's 1 out of 10 people who eat enough fruits and vegetables, a common question I've got throughout the years is there a supplement I could take instead of eating fruits and vegetables? Is there an easier way to do that? And I'm like, could you just eat a fruit and vegetable? Is there a pill I could take? Could you just eat a fruit and vegetable? So, no, we typically don't recommend, it's not recommended for supplements, because when you think about a whole piece of food, just even think about a cup of milk. It has calcium, vitamin D, magnesium. It's a whole host of nutrient elements that are working in concert together. And then you're putting a lot of those together. There is absolutely no way that you could get that synergy going and everything you need in a supplement to replace the medicine that you would get at the end of your fork. That said, of course, there are certain people who need to consider supplements with their physician. You may have a need for calcium. You may have a need for B12 based on your diet, and maybe you need a source of that. There's different discussions around that, but in terms of being the medicine at the end of your fork, we really encourage you to challenge yourself to eat more fruits and vegetables. So, consider alcohol. Dr. Verapan already talked about that. How much is too much? Really, it's really the best probably is none. You think about it, but really 1 a day, like Dr. Verapan said, for a woman, and 2 for a man. That's usually about 5 ounces of wine, maybe 12-ounce beer, and maybe 1.5 ounces of hard alcohol. And that actually has been shown to have an effect in the colon and been directly related to colon cancer in terms of alcohol consumption. The other thing to consider about alcohol consumption is it's really empty calories. It's enjoyable if you like alcohol, right? But it just provides, it's a heavy source of calories, okay? It has higher calories than any fruits or vegetables or carbohydrates would you eat. It has higher calories than the protein you would eat, you know, ounce for ounce. Just not as high as fat, but it's right up there. So you're really taking in a lot of extra calories, which makes it difficult to manage your weight, which we know is an important factor. So I would say to that two risks don't make a right. And so I would consider avoiding alcohol if you can. Leave little room for sugar. We already talked about those simple sugars. Those are the rest of those carbohydrates that really, you want to vilify carbohydrates, those are the ones that you're going to say, I need less of. And the actual recommendation is no more than 6 teaspoons, equivalent of 6 teaspoons for women, and 9 for men a day. That equates to about 30 grams of total carbs. So it's really not a lot. If you're talking about those 6 teaspoons, you're going to get it in, you know, a lot of different things that you pick up, especially if they're processed foods. You're going to be getting a lot of sugar in that, and that's where you're going to be reading the label and looking at that ingredient list to see how much sugar. Food industry loves to use sugar. We enjoy sugar. We like the taste of it. I've heard that some of the fast food places actually put sugar on their French fries because they will be more popular and people will eat more of them because they like that flavor, that taste. So you really want to avoid any sugary drinks and added sugars. So we talked about your waistline and weight, and we talked about your need to really move. When we talk about waistline and weight, there's a direct relationship to your health. The larger your waist gets, the more inflammatory things are going on inside your body, which is not conducive of healthy cells and for a body that is going to be, you know, avoiding any kinds of chronic diseases. And so that waistline measurement, if you want to go home and measure your waist tonight, women's like 31.5 inches and men 37, no more than 37 inches. BMI, if you heard what your BMI is, it's calculation. Doctor can do that with you. Of course, a dietitian can. You can go on, just go online and Google BMI. You probably can calculate it. You want to be somewhere between maybe 19 and 25, kind of rounding in there. Above 25, you're starting to push into a range where you kind of want to bring it back down. You want to be as lean as possible with your weight without really being unhealthy and underweight. So that's where we're going with that. So the moving is part of it. There's a direct correlation that the more you move, your risk of developing colon cancer goes down. Those 150 minutes, and also we recommend as you get a little bit older, you want to have some of that metabolically active tissue in your body, and that's really the lean tissue, it's your muscle mass. So you want to include in some of that workout that you do during the week, a couple of days a week of some strength training so that you're actually maintaining your muscle mass, which is difficult as you get older. And really try to shoot for maybe 30 minutes a day if you can to get that moving, and find something that you enjoy so that you'll do it often. So in summary, I gave you the plate, I gave you the 50, 25, 25, so I gave you the really easy way to know if your plate looks good. I gave you the size of the plate, what things to put on there, and how many, you know, to get a lot of that to fill it up. But I want to give you a more specific prescription. This is actually in your PowerPoint. You can take it home. So this is a goal. This is a goal. This prescription's a goal because I said I would give you the healthy eating prescription today. It is really 5 to 7 servings of fruits and vegetables, and it includes, like you'll see, eating through the rainbow there. I've put on a lot of different colors for you to encourage to eat on your plate every day if you can. A serving of beans is great if you can have that as well. Some nuts and seeds. It's not a very big portion. Nuts are concentrated sources. Calories, so check out the portion size. It's a very small handful in terms of what we're talking about there. I put 0 alcohol. We know what the limit is on that. Sugary drinks, the 30 minutes of activity per day, the 150 minutes a week that Dr. Verapan spoke of. Now here's your weekly prescription. We said, can you eat a serving of omega-3 fattier fish during the week? We talked about it being salmon, the tuna, sardines, mackerel, trout, herring. Actually, oysters, too, could fall in there as well, if that's interesting to you. And another serving of fish. We talked about pollock or cod or some of those white lean fish. Less than 18 ounces a week of red meat. And the red meat, I didn't call that out, but it's the beef, the pork, and the lamb. Avoid processed meats or meats that have the nitrates in them, which are carcinogenic for you. And that would be in lunch meats and bacons and sausages and things like that. So let's remember as we get ready to go back there and taste some really great tasting food, that remember it's all about adding. It's making a celebration. Your mantra should be that you should celebrate and eat a variety of foods. It should be seasonal. It should be local. I also brought for you tonight a little handout on what's in season, so you know what fruits and vegetables in season and can get those. And it's really about enjoying your food every day and cooking. So what you'll do is live a long, healthy life and be a happy cook. That's it.